campus of Xavier University.
Yeah.
WBOK Go and Equity Media Station.
I'm Mike Island with 4 things you should know on the Black Information Network. Former New York Congressman George Santos will be sentenced Friday after previously pleading guilty to wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin will not run for re-election next year. The Democrat currently serves as the Senate Minority Whip and is a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. Durbin said in his heart he knows it's time to pass the torch. Stocks are climbing for a second straight day. It comes as investors hope U.S. and China trade tensions may calm down soon. This after President Trump said he had no plans to remove Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell from his position. The public is lining up to pay their respects to Pope Francis. His body is lying in state at St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing. The 88-year-old Pope died Monday at the Vatican after suffering a stroke. His funeral will be held on Saturday. I'm Mike Island with 4 things you should know on your home for Black News First, the Black Information Network.
It's now time for Let's Elevate, the Arnie and Carey Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is Arnie Philco.
And this is Cary Grant.
And we are back in studio tonight after being separated last night. It's always better, Cary, when we're together.
Absolutely.
You know, we could see each other.
Yeah.
We can point fingers at each other.
Right.
You know,
right.
we aren't going to be like the Treasury Secretary and Musk, though. We're not going to get in any fights tonight, okay?
No,
No yelling matches, none of that stuff.
No WWE in the office.
And we are 24 hours away from Jazz Fest. I'm so psyched about being there tomorrow. Going, hey, you know, it's half price day. Everybody should know that.
Absolutely.
You know,
it's
if you're
Locals
in
Day.
New Orleans, Locals Day.
Yeah.
And Rockin' Doopsy will be there at 1:30. So I'm all excited. My favorite guy in New Orleans. So
Jazz Fest. I thought you were getting ready to say 24 hours away from the draft.
That's more important.
Yeah, right now.
Well, we'll talk about that. A little later, we'll talk sports.
Wow.
But,
Locals Day is tomorrow, so that's
we're going to have a great show tonight. For the 3rd time this day, it's a triple header, Mr. Producer, okay, to use the sports analogy. We are going to have our great sheriff on with us tonight to talk about the renewal, let's use that word, the renewal of the tax millage.
Yes.
So we will have Sheriff Hudson on in just a couple minutes. We're going to try not to duplicate all of the other questions that Will Son and Gerard and others, and we'll have to come up with some new stuff, Cary, okay?
We'll try.
But I got to, as Cary is probably getting very sick of hearing me, I got to vent again on our dear president and our moronic vice president and their position on foreign policy in Ukraine. Because yet again, instead of actually trying to broker an equitable deal, a deal that the world wants, our president and our vice president, and I'm going to put Secretary of State Rubio in this because I'm not going to let him escape from this, have made the decision that when the tough gets tough, We'll just go away, okay? And that's kind of where they are. They skipped a meeting in London yesterday with all of the European leaders, and they basically said, look, unless Ukraine comes to the table and basically concedes, which is what they've said, we're just going to walk away from this. Well, you know what? First of all, I think I remembered, Cary, during the presidential campaign, that Ukraine would be settled even before Inauguration Day.
Right. In 24 hours.
Yeah, that seems to have passed.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
it's
now we're at the 100-day mark.
It's the longest day.
Yeah, exactly. The longest day. And now we're 100 days out, and it's not. So you received Friday night my email venting, and what I said, and I will say over and over, look, it's easy to get to an agreement. You could be the New Orleans Saints. You can get to an agreement. The question is it a good agreement? You can be any form of negotiations. If you just concede and ask one party to step back and accept whatever, that's not an agreement. That's just a capitulation. And, you know, my feeling is this. If President Trump really was serious about saving lives, about caring for human beings, both in Ukraine and in Russia, okay, this is the position he would take. He would say to Mr. Putin in Russia, you have 1 week to get this to a ceasefire and to have serious negotiations on a permanent solution. If you can do that, we're all ears. And Ukraine has already accepted that, which they have. If you don't do that, though, the answer is not to walk away. Okay, that's giving Russia a win.
Right.
The answer is the following. If you do not accept that 1 week solution, we're going to do the following. We're going to triple our aid to Ukraine from what Biden gave. We're going to immediately start steps for Ukraine to join NATO. We're going to put airplanes over the skies of Ukraine with our European partners to protect the civilians. We're going to put Patriot missile systems in each of the large cities so they can't keep killing innocent children in hospitals and schools. Now, if you did all of that, I assure you, President Putin would be coming to the table and negotiating in good faith. But when America walks away from a situation and says, it's just too hard, we can't do it, the parties don't, what he's really saying is, you know what, we want to cozy up to Putin. Zelensky's giving us problems in Ukraine.
Right.
So we'll show that guy. We're just going to walk away and we'll let Russia do whatever they want. And I'm sorry, Carey. And for all of our listeners, I know I'm very passionate about this issue because I deal with this on almost a daily basis with some of the other work that I do. But that is not the United States. That's not the Republican Party. I mean, Ronald Reagan is rolling over in his grave right now. Okay. And it's time that Americans, especially Republicans in Congress, wake up, get a backbone, and start to defend this country the way it should.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about it is it's just like these stupid China tariffs, which you're backing away from now, and all that. This is not Mr. Art of the deal. Mr. Art of the deal usually goes to the extreme to win what he wants out of somebody. This is, like you said, a one-sided capitulation to help his friend Vladimir, and that's all it is, and that's why it's going to fail as well. So it's just going to become more chaos, more trouble, and nothing's going to be resolved.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much where we are now and where we're going to be a month from now, 2 months from now, or whatever.
Yeah, well, let's see how this plays out. All I can say is this, is that if you really wanted to get to an equitable, permanent, long-term solution,
sure,
I don't think you do it by walking away because Putin says, well, look, if the United States is not going to penalize us,
we
going. Might as well keep bombing and throwing
right.
missiles and
right.
doing everything we can. It's just the opposite of what we should be doing, which is saying Russia and Putin, either do the right thing or we're going to double down and we're going to support our ally and support Europe. I mean, that's what should be happening. And look, it's on us. We voted for this guy, okay? We have to live with both domestic policy and foreign policy.
Right.
How do y'all like your 401k this Wednesday afternoon? Because it's about 10% less than it was just 3 weeks ago.
And coming soon because of the earnings reports that just came out for the first quarter, it's going to be layoffs in companies and with these governmental layoffs, there's going to be a lot of pain going around.
No doubt. Well, let's get to a much easier issue.
That's
the sheriff's office.
issue.
We have Sheriff Susan Hudson in studio. Thank you,
yes,
Sheriff, for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carey. Thank you, Arnie. I'm glad to be here.
Honestly, this is, for those that listen to WBOK, this literally is the third appearance of the day. I got up early this morning because I wanted to listen to my good friend Will Sutton, and he had the sheriff on and talked about the issue of the millage, and then Gerard also had the sheriff on and talked about it. So, Sheriff, I think the fact that this station and all of us that have the honor of being on this station are spending so much time on this is really important. I mean, we talk about money and millages, but at the end of the day, this is about the safety of our community, right?
That's it. It's the safe and strong communities millage renewal. That's what it's about. How we in the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, which we touch a great part of the system, how we can affect crime in this city. Crime is falling in part from what we're already doing with folks in our custody, but also we're putting deputies on the street.
Right.
They love serving this community, whether they're reserve deputies who work every festival in the city or our regular deputies who work details out in the streets defending the city. Mardi Gras, when the courts are closed, our deputies go out to do things. So it's about two really important things: taking care of our deputies and taking care of the facilities that we run. We run a mini city.
Right.
You know, we have a power plant, water treatment, warehouse, food. We serve, 25,000 meals a week. It's a lot. And people, we tried to open it up for the media to come in and see, so you could just see the scope of the operations. But when I heard about the falsehoods being put out there, out and out lies about what this is about, had to get up this morning, get up early and get on it
Yeah.
and keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
It is really important. You know, I live in Lakeview, and you know, Canal and Harrison has always been a big political area where signs are there and people.
Yeah.
I mean, I just passed it a little while ago. I mean, there's probably 30 signs on the intersection. I wanted to ask you about the opposition signs, the no signs, because they kind of came out of nowhere, and they're competing with other signage that very clearly says this is not a new tech. Do we know who's behind the no signs?
Not for sure. I suspect it could be political opponents that are on the other side, not those who are going to run for sheriff, because you would be shooting yourself in the foot if you were not to be against that. But I think I'm a progressive, and I'm still a progressive. I'm not changing. I'm going to stay there. So I think it's those on the conservative side trying to do that. But I can't prove it because they wouldn't put their name on it. They're throwing a rock and hiding their hand. So I put my name on my signs, and they should have done the same.
Sheriff, I want to ask you all, I want to get into the millage itself, but I want to ask you about the politics of the vote, because, number one, you've been through this before. I mean, you had a vote a couple of years ago that didn't work so well. You know, that's an understatement.
It's slightly off.
But this is a completely different issue than what we had a couple of years ago. But it is a low turnout election. It's easy in a low turnout election for those that want to oppose something to rally forces to come out because the numbers are so small.
Right.
How are you and your team handling the winning of this vote? What are the strategies? What's being done on election day? We're in early voting right now. What's being done? Talk about the politics of winning.
Oh yeah. I mean, first, you know, if you want to win a millage, and y'all have been through this, you have to put a campaign together.
Absolutely.
I have 2 campaigns this year. This one, and then running for sheriff coming up. But you've got to put a campaign. You got to talk to people. You've got to give them the information. People in this city listen to the details. They want to know the details of what's going on. We hired some folks to do that for us. They've done a tremendous job of putting together a campaign, talking with stakeholders, putting out information. You'll see commercials, billboards, social media, so that people can know what's going on. We've had town hall meetings, different parts of the city. So we're not hiding anything here. In fact, it's important for the community to know that they are investing in their own safety with this millage. And we want them to know it. But when I found out they're actually saying it is a new tax, first of all, I rolled back to 2.4. I was at 2.8. I rolled back as the city asked us to. I didn't roll back forward for this. We let that go. But because taxpayers have said, look, we're tired, right? But this is the bare bones minimum we need.
Sure, people may not understand roll forward, roll backwards. You basically had the opportunity to actually ask for more.
That's right.
And you decided not to in order for the benefit of the community where we are right now.
That's right. The original millage was 2.81, I believe, mils. We rolled it back as city council asked us to, which I believe was last year. Maybe it was the year before that. And then we didn't roll it back forward because we could have with this renewal. We didn't do it. So I hear the community. I hear what happened last time. But we really have got to take care of, we have to be good stewards of public funds. We have to take care of these buildings. They've invested a lot in building these, and you've got to upkeep them. And that has not been happening. So we got to have that plan in place. I always tell people it's like your air conditioning. You can pay the $25 per month for the filters, or you can pay $10,000 for a new system when you're not doing that.
And also, Sheriff, I think that people have to understand this as well. Everything you're saying is true, and it is a community within the community. You have a city within the city, and you're also caring for. It's about prisoner care too. These are people's family members. They may be in bad situations. They may be falsely, whatever's going on. But also this money is to take care of them as well. And people need to understand that if this doesn't happen, then we are in a crisis, a financial crisis we don't even need to have at this point.
You're right about that. There's a consent judgment which cost millions. There have been other lawsuits for improper medical and mental health care over the years. One of the reasons we switched to a new provider because we needed somebody more responsive.
Right.
We're moving forward with LSU Psych is now over our board certified psychiatrist. So that's a tremendous. I mean, Tulane was there previously, so it was still a good fit. But just making sure that, and people don't really know this, but if you have somebody in custody, and many people we know somebody in custody, it is a population of mental health, addiction, and trauma.
Right.
And when you're talking about mental health and addiction, you're talking about medical care, really need for medical care, a very sick population that needs a lot of care. This month, 590 residents received psychiatric medications. That's not everything else that they have.
Yeah.
We treat diabetes, cancer, you name it.
Right.
All those things are taken care of in a particular day. And they have a right to all that. That is a constitutional right when you're pretrial. So if we don't provide that, the city will pay for that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, Sheriff, a lot of folks, candidly, they don't know what the sheriff's office does.
That's right.
They think you run jail, somebody gets arrested, they're awaiting trial, you lock them up. But the reality is you have pregnant women, you have people with addiction, as you said, with mental illness. You have not only do you have a constitutional responsibility, you have an ethical responsibility to try during the time that they're there to treat them with the dignity that people deserve. And I think many people, I wish you'd had like a month of open house and the entire city could come and see what you do.
Yes.
Because I think it's really interesting, and I think people would have a different perspective.
And the scope. I mean, I've been there before, and the scope of what it is when you go and see what it is, it starts registering with you. The size, the scope of what's going on over there.
It's huge.
Really important.
And you have to take into account the same violence that goes on in the streets between this ward, this set, that set, all that. Now you're all combined in a space, sometimes in the same living quarters inside the jail.
Right.
And so we've got to deal with all that too, that don't particularly like each other, or, maybe somebody shot at somebody previously. We got to keep the peace there. We've got to make sure that they don't hurt each other while they're there. They have to face justice. They've got to be able to, their accusers need to have their day in court where they can get some justice. So it's really important. We also take care of victims in this community as well.
Yeah.
Right? In this state, every application for help from the state has to go through a sheriff's office. Same thing in Orleans Parish. It's been hovering around 1,000, but it goes up and down depending on what's going on. This year with January 1, we gained about, I think, probably 100 cases, additional cases in that one day, which just really is a huge thing for an organization our size. So, yeah, we do a lot for this community. We love this community, though.
Yeah. Well, you have really, since you've been sheriff, you've really taken the approach of more programming, more effective programming. All of that costs money.
Costs money.
And, for people and we're going to get into the topic of, quote, transparency, because now that seems to be where those that don't want this to pass seem to be hitting home. Why don't we come right back after a break? You can stay with us a little bit?
Absolutely.
All right. We would love to hear from you tonight. 504-582-9422. Again, folks, I know you've heard this, and you're going to probably hear it for another week and a half. But this is a really important topic, maybe one of the most important topics facing our city right now. So that's why there's so much emphasis. We'll be back in just a minute.
That's right. It's party time each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on WBOK. It's the Throwback Throwdown with DJ Wick as he brings you the best in old school from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2Ks. Plus, the party goes to another level at 9 p.m. with the Throwback Throwdown Party Mix to round out the night. It's the Throwback Throwdown Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on WBOK 1230 a.m. and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Come on, children. Sunday Gospel. I am Leo Jackson asking you to tune in every Sunday, 12 noon till 2 p.m. Feel the power of the Holy Spirit moving. Make you want to clap your hands, shout, cry out, glory, hallelujah. Don't miss this program, Sunday Gospel, 12 noon until 2 p.m. every Sunday. Station you listen to all day long.
Come on, let's have a good time. Come on, let's have a good time.
On last week's From the Press Box to Press Row with Donald Ware.
For the Commanders, when we talk about great receivers in the National Football League, we rarely talk about Terry McLaurin. 5 straight years of 1,000 yards receiving, and even in his first season, he had like 920 yards receiving. So this is a guy that, since he's come into the National Football League, that has also gotten it done. But really, the key to the Commanders this year has really been Jaden Daniels and some of the things that he's been able to do, why this team is in the position that it's in.
From the Press Box to Press Row is one of the hottest sports talk shows in the country. Join Donald each week as he takes you on a journey through the world of HBCU sports and pro sports and interviews with top sports and entertainment figures. That's From the Press Box to Press Row.
Fridays on WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about.
On the next edition of The Way Forward, we continue the Advancing Southeast Louisiana series with a conversation with the Chancellor of Nunez Community College, Dr. Tina Tinney. Join me on The Way Forward this weekend on WBOK 1230 AM or streaming live at WBOK1230.com in the Playoed app. It's The Way Forward with yours truly, Eddie Francis, Saturday, 3 p.m. on WBOK. What New Orleans is talking about.
WBOK online at WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Carey Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
All right, we're
back
and having a great discussion with Sheriff Hudson. And, I want to say, Sheriff, we in New Orleans love to debate and sometimes we disagree. This is one where the Advocate, BGR, Clancy Dubose, and others have come together. All have said this millage should pass. Yeah. And that doesn't happen in New Orleans very often, does it?
No, certainly not. And one of the things we did this time around, which I didn't do the first time, was to do an open house where we opened the doors and brought the media in so they could see. Yeah. See for yourself what we're dealing with here. And it was tremendous because they were like, wow, this is huge. It is a huge undertaking. But what we're doing will make this city safer. Yes. And everybody wants that. Everybody wants that.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe, when we think about New Orleans today. I mean, we're all happy because the city is safer. Okay?
Yes.
The last couple of years have been a couple good years, but you know what? It wasn't that far in the past. That's right. Where the number 1, number 2, and number 3 issue was the safety of the city. And I think the other thing that there's a misnomer is people, when you think about safety, first thought is the NOPD. But it really is a system. It's a judicial system. It's the DA. It's public defenders. And it's the sheriff's office. And all of those have to work together.
And it's to prepare people to go back out into society in a positive way. Like if you could talk a little bit about the addiction issues and things like that. That's really important for making a citizen out of somebody who's been incarcerated.
It really is, because we have a program called decarceration, which is where they kind of take off that skin that keeps coming back to jail. Yeah. Take it off, you put on a new one, teach you new ways of doing things. But this city, one of the most amazing cities I've ever been in, where the community said, we want this. We are all going to roll in that direction. So we see mental health for children from the city. We see the DA's got a diversion program for mental health, addiction, other things. Yeah. We've got drug court. Did you know on average it's about 3 to 5 years before somebody can really kick a habit? Mm-hmm. It takes time. It takes court supervision. It takes a lot of resources. It's not easy. So we see people, all these courts have social workers, and we've all moved in that direction, and everybody has to do that because it's not, mental health, addiction, and trauma are lifelong things to deal with. Right. And they're weighty issues. So we're doing that. So addiction, when I came into office, we were not treating it, but we know that's an issue. And when their overdoses been in the jail, We know we've got to deal with this issue. I think in 2023, 500 people died on the street from overdoses.
Yeah.
So we know that's an issue. And we know we need to deal with them while they're in custody. We weren't doing that. I had to get a new provider who's now doing that. That is now what we're doing. And we are going to open a reentry addiction clinic to where, with the opioid settlement funds, people can get a shot when they leave the jail. They're really expensive if you know anything about it. So we can't afford it in custody. They get pills in custody, but they'll get a 30-day shot when they leave. Now you got the chance to kick that, right? Now you can feel good for 30 days. And you know what? You need to come back and get another 30 days. We're going to give it to you.
Right.
We can't let you drop like that. We've got to make sure, because I know you'll be back if we don't do those things. So we've got to treat the whole person. And when we treat them, we help their families. Yeah. Whether you're dealing with somebody with a mental health issue, I've had to do that and had somebody live with me. You need help. You need resources. And addiction is doubly so.
Well, and you're keeping the city safer. I mean, the reality is part of this entire process is getting people to a better way of life.
That's right.
So that they don't come back and we don't have recidivism and things. So let me talk to you about transparency. Okay, that word is kicked around quite a bit.
That's right.
First of all, talk a little bit, how many inmates do you have? How many sheriffs do you have right now? Talk about the numbers a little bit, because again, the wording of the millage is that this is going towards operation and maintenance of the facilities.
Yeah.
So obviously the number of people there and the number of law enforcement officers is a big part of that.
That's right. We have a little under 1,400 folks, and that's been for the last couple of months. But we're at 1,600 at different points last year. As you know, the city council limit is 1,250.
Right.
We're at 1,600. So, but there's no mechanism for me to just release people, and that shouldn't be, right? That's a judge's job.
Right.
But I do need some help with that, because we have to be able to make sure, number one, the right people are in custody. So we just had too many people in custody, and we've had to move some probation and parole folks who are being held for those violations to other places, because it's just too full, and it's dangerous again for those in our custody and our deputies. Right. So we're dealing with that. So you asked me about the number of people in custody.
Number of sheriffs.
We are probably about 35% understaffed. So we're probably about 65% right now. I have a total of around 730 employees. We should be close to 1,000.
Yeah.
Because we alone.
And is it a money issue or is it a recruitment issue?
It's both, right? I can't recruit at $18.45 an hour to come into and be on a pod with 60 folks, men who are high security. It's very difficult to do. You can make $18.45 stocking shelves or doing something or delivering packages, and probably won't have to tackle people or get punched or what. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's a really tough sell. And I got it to that because it was $15.50 when I got into office. That was a big help for us because I was at 45% staffing when I got in. So we've increased. We continue to increase deputies. And the more deputies we have, the more we can put on the streets as well. So, and we can comply with this consent judgment. And
we'll get to that in a minute.
I'm so excited about that. So alone in the jail, we need about 150 deputies.
Right.
And that phase 3 is coming online. We need an additional 50 for that. So if you know anything about custodial facilities in the jail, you have to make sure contraband doesn't get into the facilities where they sleep and live. And so we're going to open up a new facility that's bigger, larger. Now we've got to make sure that all those spaces we're not hiding things that shouldn't be there. So it's more than just putting a few people in there. You have got to really secure it.
Yeah.
So let's try to break down the millage when it passes, and I'm going to be optimistic because I think it will pass. Is about $13 million a year, I think, out of a total budget of $55 million somewhere in that area.
Yeah, right around there.
It's about 20% or so.
Big cut.
Yeah, it's a big amount.
It's a huge cut.
So, in layman's terms, how is that money going to be used? Is it going to be used to bring in more sheriffs? Is it going to be used to pay more for those we have? Et cetera, to talk a little bit about where the money's going to go.
Yeah, two big items. The facilities themselves. Now, it's only 10 years old. It only opened 10 years ago. But again, there were some design flaws in it that allow metal to be broken off and made into weapons. So they can hurt themselves or others. There are facets of it that allow them to harm themselves. I won't say what those are, but there are, and I've got to fix those. And there's room for 1,400 people in there, so I've got to go. It's got to be every single cell has to be fixed.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 700 plus cells. So all that is fixed. There's a big cost for that, right? We had doors that don't shut appropriately and lock in a jail, right? So you can just get out when you want to. That's not okay. I've been saying that since I got into office. That's been an issue since I got into office. I'm paying for it myself now, but that takes away from something else that I need to do.
Right.
I've got to get that money returned. So we want to have a safe environment there, an environment that can be a learning environment, a change environment, but we've got to fix it. So building's number one. And then wear and tear. We have too many people in there. So if you know anything about, I want you to think about too many people using your plumbing at your house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got too many people, what's going to happen? It's going to break down.
Yes.
And that's a big bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Electricity, that's a big bill. So we've got to fix those structures and then put preventive maintenance in place, which wasn't really done because it couldn't be paid for.
Right.
So now we've got to do that regular. This is what it costs. I have two great big generators. When Ida hit, the only lights in the city for a while were the jail.
Yeah.
Because those great big generators, those have to be maintained and function. Although we would probably move everybody if another Ida rolls through, eventually they got to come back. So we do have to be able to do that. So buildings. Second, a pay plan for our deputies.
Before you get into that, just on buildings. So phase 3 money to build is not part of this, right? That's a separate pool of money to have built the third phase?
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up because most is being funded by the city, but some parts are mine to have to fund.
Okay.
And not everything is funded there. So some parts I do have to fund. Like what you have an old computer system now, 10 years old in the jail, but that's the nerve center, the control center. So now I'm going to have a different set of controls for this building, which is now new and 10 years newer technology. We need to retrofit the whole thing. So to just make sure that the whole system can work together. So there's certain things I have to pay for as well, and then I have to maintain it once it's built.
Right.
So
all right. So the first big piece is building, and the second is
the heartbeat of the office, and that is our deputies.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take care of them. We talked about when I got into office, they think they made $15.47, something like that per hour. We're now at 18, but the national average is 24. So, and I think everybody knows that to a living wage now with cost, what eggs are what?
$7 a carton.
Yeah. So we got to take care of them.
Yeah.
It's a tough job, but they're doing everything I asked them to do. And originally when I'm saying we have to get people to a better place, they're like, what? Is hug a thug? You love them? No, now they see they're part of the turnaround in making this city safer. And they've embraced it. They're with it. They'll go patrol. They'll work the courts. They'll work the jail. They'll do whatever. So they've done everything I've asked them to do, and we've got to take care of them. So we need a pay plan. The city did that, 2012
or
something. So, because I was in the city at that time, and really low salaries, and then they've been able to put their employees on a trajectory. You keep them when they can pay their bills and take care of their families.
And just to put it in perspective, if this did not pass, well, of course, there would be some idea of like the city would fund it or whatever, but that's not an easy solution. People have to understand that first. So don't think that not having this tax will mean you don't have to pay for these things. And the worst of it would be losing deputies, non-maintenance on the buildings, that kind of thing. Then it becomes an unlivable situation as well. So there's so many ramifications to this if it doesn't pass. And I'm like, Arnie, I believe it will, because just like what happened in the recent election with the amendments from the state, people here in New Orleans said no. And I think when they knew the information, when they knew what was really going on, they came out in droves and said no. They need to come out in droves and say yes about this.
They really do.
Because this will maintain and keep things going.
Yeah.
We definitely need more, but let's not go backward.
Just don't go back.
And let me highlight what Carey just said.
Yeah.
There is no magic wand here that the city's going to write a check for $13 million.
That's right.
And even if they did, by the way, that $13 million is replacing recreation or this.
It will take away from other things. It just rolls down.
That's why this millage. But Sheriff, I want to turn to the issue of accountability. Because I think some people feel, and I saw the opposition, and I heard some of the opposition this morning about, well, we don't know the numbers and such. But you go in front of the city council and give them reports and documents and financials and how much you spend. That's part of your role as a public servant, right?
Yep. There's a template, and every year you got to fill it out, and it's detailed about what it is. But then you go to the hearings and they ask you more questions and say supplement.
I invented that template. That's why I know about it.
That's what Cary did. Yeah.
Cary, you're to blame for that, man.
Yes.
Yes. It made it easy for them to understand. It really, honestly, that's really what it was all about.
It breaks it down.
Yeah.
So it's easily digestible what we're spending on. So it's really important that we do that. But we give them what we pay every month, our payroll, what we spend. I've broken it down since I got into office. This is what we're going to spend this money on. Fixing. So I've been transparent about what we're going to do with this money. We continue to do that, a pay plan and fixing these buildings.
And I want to be clear with people. I mean, because you have basically, you have grants and some smaller stuff, but your basic two lumps of money, one is city money that gets budgeted, and the other is this millage. Is on both accounts. Obviously, city money coming through the budget process, you have to go through that transparency and accounting. But on millage money as well, you have to tell the council how you're spending the money, where it's going. You have to disclose all of that, don't you?
You do, but I want the community also to know most of that money was spent before I even got into office, and that was on these new buildings. So the old millage, that's what it was for. We still have some debt to pay off, by the way. Yeah. So we're not done with that yet, but we will be able to pay that off soon, get that paid off, and then we can do what we need to do to move ahead. Not just maintain, but move ahead.
Yeah. Let's be very black and white on this, Sheriff. If this fails, and $13 million is taken out of your budget, tell us the three things that are immediately going to be affected.
We went through this at the city furloughs. I got to send deputies home. They're not going to be able to do that. I've got to send employees home. And there's so much more to a city. You got to pay people bills of things that you spend. So we won't be able to pay people on time. We won't be able to utilize as many vendors to do the work that we do. We won't have deputies in the streets. I've got to pull them back. Yeah. And I can only do our core functions, the courts, but I do have to reduce the number in the courts as well because everything is going to have to move to the jail. And that's not going to be good for our city. And I'm even going to have to cut the number that come in every day to the jail. Right now, we have mandatory overtime just to meet the demands of the consent judgment, and all that's in jeopardy.
Yeah, and you've done I think a really great job expanding the services. I mean, everybody that has a nonprofit, we know the sheriff is always there, but things like Mardi Gras, that everybody celebrates. Yes. I mean, if you have to cut services, I would think that would be one of the areas discretionary that probably would be reduced, would it not?
It is for a month. We basically everything month to 2 months because you have to do the payroll, the documentation on follow-up, accounting, auditing, all that afterward, before, during, and afterwards to make sure the money is being spent properly. We document everything. So there's a huge cost to us of our employees that also facilitate that, the administrative side as well, not just the deputy. So that they're not going to be there. One of the first things that'll get cut is administrative as well. So that's huge. I want to think about all the things we do for this community, whether it's reserves being out in the community. All that administration is going to go away because that's a luxury. Deputies, putting in deputies out to do any kind of work, that's got to all go away. So tents, that's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
We support community, what goes on in this community. Festivals, nonprofits, churches,
Thanksgiving Day.
We got to cut that.
Yeah.
So those are all, these are all things that are about quality of life in this city. And we're a big part of it, and we're going to have to cut it.
And I always say this, and at a federal level, state level, every level, being a budget person, I always heard, I would say this point blank, everybody wants to pay less taxes, conservatives, liberals, whatever you want to call yourself. But you have to be practical about it because you want things as well. And some of the things you named, and particularly you want a well-run jail to take care of the prisoners, to take care of their needs, and to take care of people's family members, as I said before. And that's what you want. You want to pay for public safety was always the biggest chunk of our city budget. Last time I did the calculation on it, it was over 25 cents of every dollar of tax money went to public safety,
That's right.
meaning the sheriff, police, everybody,
That's
the
right.
courts, everything. And everybody wants that. So
wants
to say cut taxes for this is just like, shooting yourself in the foot. You anti-crime, but you want to cut this. I don't get that. Those two do not measure up.
They don't. And I would ask the community to look at what Boston did. You remember in the 90s, 80s, there was the guy who killed his wife, and then he blamed it on a black guy, and then the police went out and into the community and just stopped and frisked and, did all these abuses. And after that, they had a day of reckoning where they said, look, we're going to put our money into these services that treat people better.
Yeah.
Keep people from being underprivileged, etc. We are doing that now in this city, and we need to continue to do that. Boston had less than, I think, 50 murders, and they're larger than we are.
Yeah.
Because they put that money in. That's what we're doing. We're putting the time, energy, effort, programming money into these spaces to do something different with these folks. And these people are not strangers. They're our neighbors, our loved ones, our family. We know who they are.
Yeah.
Well, best practices has shown that you can't incarcerate yourself out of a crime problem, and we've made great strides. I'm not sure that at the state level right now we seem to be moving in the reverse direction a little bit, but over the last 7 years with some of the new laws that have been passed, we've kind of taken a best practices, and in many ways we're one of the leaders in the country about keeping our cities. I got to ask you this. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but we've had media weigh in through op-eds and stuff like that. I pretty much. A little bit of negativity, but mostly very positive and very supportive of the renewal. How about our public officials from the mayor, the council, state legislators? Have they weighed in on this and have been supportive in helping on this?
Well, it's an election year.
All right. Yes.
And everybody's up for re-election this year. So we're kind of, what we don't want is opposition to it. We got no opposition to it. So, but everybody's got their, taxes, and that's not a popular thing to have to be a part of. So what we're doing is educating, informing, providing the information they need so they can talk to their constituents.
Right.
I've not asked them to do anything other than that. But the money, as we said here, has to be spent one way or another.
Yeah.
Or we have to let people out of custody. That's the next thing, because they can't stay there. If there's no deputies to take care of them, there's no food, there's no plumbing, they can't stay.
Yeah. I don't think the public wants that.
They don't want that. They don't want that.
They should be well aware of that.
Yes. Anything we missed? What would you like to say to our listening audience for the third time today, Sheriff?
I want to say this. Do not be fooled by these games, because this is something. I went on Go Vote and just pulled up the ballot. What does that say?
I'm having a hard time reading it.
It says law enforcement, sheriff millage, law enforcement proposition, millage renewal. Just read the language. You can't even put it on the ballot
like
that.
It has to say it's a renewal or it's a new one. You have to tell the community that. Do not be fooled by these dirty politics. Vote for public safety. Vote for safe and strong communities. And also do your own homework.
And as Carey said, this community really can make a difference, okay?
Yes,
we saw it with the state amendments.
Absolutely.
We can say it again a week. And by the way, we have early voting right now, so it's
Go out
Jazz
now.
Fest a week from this Saturday.
That's right.
Go vote now, get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So easy.
Okay? And where would people go to get further informed? What's the website? What would you like to lead them to?
The website is safeandstrongrenewal.com. Safeandstrongrenewal.com. You can also go through our website, opso.gov.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank
for
you
being
so
with
much,
us.
Sheriff.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
this.
We are going to take a quick break, come back for the last 10, 15 minutes, talk a couple other topics, maybe even sports, okay? We'll be back in just a minute.
Attention, WBOK listeners. Are you a fan of the station and want to show your support in style? Well, we've got some exciting news for you. Introducing the official WBOK merchandise, the perfect way to wear your love for the station. Whether you're a longtime listener or a new fan, we've got something for everyone. Head to WBOK1230.com now and grab your WBOK gear before it's gone. When you buy WBOK merch, you're not just getting quality items, you're supporting the station you love.
Hey, WBOK, Ron Richardson here, host of a new show called Conversations with Ron Richardson. Join me every Saturday live from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. as we sit down and discuss mental health, disability, drug addiction, and everyday life issues. If you're ready to have a real conversation, let's get it started, New Orleans. Every Saturday from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. right here on WBOK and streaming worldwide on WBOK1230.com.
Hello, friend. Tavis Smiley here with a special announcement. You can catch my show at a new time. Weekdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Same great topics, same great guests, same great conversations, just a little earlier in the day. It's Tavis Smiley, weekdays 1 to 4 p.m. only on WBOK 1230 a.m. What New Orleans is talking about.
Hey, this is Steve Poston. Be sure to listen to WBOK 1230 a.m. every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. and Sunday evening at 5 p.m., bringing you the best Southern Soul barroom music with the Southern Soul Weekend Party Mix, hosted by me, of course. I'll be playing your favorite Southern Soul music by artists from all over the South, right here on WBOK 1230 a.m. or online at WBOK1230.com. The station you listen to longer. Listen to longer. Listen to longer.
WBOK. Listen now on WBOK1230.com.
The Arnie and Carey Show with Arnie Philco and Cary Grant.
All right, we are back.
We are back.
That was a great interview. Thank
Yes,
you,
it was.
Sheriff, for honestly,
Thank
to
you.
come 3 times in one day to talk about this.
It's that important, Arnie. It really is.
And it shows
really
the sheriff's
is.
commitment to this issue
Yeah.
on behalf of our city.
And the people who are running for sheriff.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, they are,
which is
good. Shift topic just for a couple minutes, and then we will finish with a couple sports things. Want to talk about a really good article that was in the Advocate today by our friend Will Sutton, dealing with the NOLA Walk of Fame, and really kind of highlighting the fact that if this thing is not done right, it could become, as he said, the Walk of Shame. Okay,
Yes. And that's the last thing we need.
And I through some different conversations I've had over the last couple days with different people, I think I have a better understanding of this. I think there was, a lot of confusion, misunderstanding a week ago, but this is a good project. First of all, let's start there.
Yeah, it always was.
Yeah, it could bring a lot of eyeballs to downtown New Orleans. I had this conversation with somebody. Imagine if we needed to expand it and had to go further on Canal Street, moving towards Claiborne and really helping revitalize that part of Canal that is not quite as strong as the area by the riverfront.
Right.
There's a lot of benefits to it, but I will say this. The people that are involved, and I think it's great that Master P is involved in this and that he's put some support behind this. A couple things they need to be really concerned about, in my opinion. One is to make sure that there is a solid selection committee of objective, neutral people with hard and fast criteria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You got to know who actually would be eligible. Is it people that are only natives of New Orleans? Is it people that may have come like I did from I'm not saying I'm a candidate, but if people came from
like
the mayor came from outside,
expatriates who come from
you have to define who's eligible for this. That's going to be really important. And then you also have to get your funding really out there. People need to understand how this is being funded. If there is city money, how much?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit, you and I, about the Wisner Fund. That's a problematic area.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I may want to look at another source.
Yeah.
But the funding's important. And I think the third thing is this is different than Hollywood, where people pay a fee. They actually have to write a check to even apply.
Yeah.
I don't think you should do that. First of all, this should be like a Hall of Fame. People should come to you and say, we think you're eligible.
Right.
You shouldn't have to write an application check to get in. And you certainly shouldn't have to write a $35,000 check.
No.
That's going to exclude a lot of people in New Orleans.
No,
so,
we have a lot of people who can be honored. And as I said before, a lot of people who aren't with us anymore, and some of whom their heirs aren't even with us anymore. And their names should be included in this. And how does that work if, nobody ever brings them up and nobody ever puts up the funds?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that those kind of criteria need to be worked out.
Yeah, so I'm very hopeful that, Master P and his representative and members of the city council, the mayor's office can come together and really put a whole package together and bring it up again. Because I think the way it came out a week ago, I mean, it for at least from what I learned, it really didn't come down as negative as it appeared in the media.
It was kind of disjointed the way it was presented to the council, which I think threw it all off balance. I want to say one thing, though. I'm really proud of Master P for stepping up in a lot of things lately, UNO and various different things. Native Son, he's definitely getting skin in the game in a lot of different areas. And I'm glad to see that with some of these people who've made it around here, particularly the younger people, younger than me, but some of those people in the rap game and that type of thing, because those people have been very successful because of New Orleans. I'm glad to see him giving back too.
I am
just
too.
His time and effort, if nothing else.
I am too. That's what I'm saying. The way it came out last week, it was so negative, and we're trying to do this and we're trying to do that. I mean, let's start with it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And the fact that Master P is behind it, wants to, be one of the leaders on this, I think is terrific. Totally self-serving, Cary. I have a great Ninth Ward stadium too, Master P. So
you
I'm
can
going to
help
be
out
reaching out
he
to
can
you.
put some stars out there too.
We can definitely do that. But
definitely
this is
do
great. All right, we got a few minutes left out of respect for our producer here. Okay, tomorrow night, NFL draft.
Absolutely.
Big night.
Huge night.
Saints have number 9.
Yes.
Okay, I heard the GM. I heard Mickey Loomis this morning basically give nothing away, which is not atypical of most NFL general managers.
Right.
So I don't think anybody has idea. I think the prevailing sentiment is that they're not going to draft a quarterback.
No.
I think everybody's saying that beyond the number 1 pick, which Tennessee's going to take. Really, whether it's Sanders, whether it's the guy from Louisville, none of these guys are really worthy of a number 9 pick in the first round.
No.
But you never know,
I think they're going to trade back and get 2 picks in the first and maybe in the early second round, and they might get somebody like that. But I think they're in a spot where they can make some deals, and I think that's actually where you need to be in this draft and with our team with all its needs.
I see you wanted to weigh in. Come on, get on there with us.
Do you think they could possibly be do you think they could possibly be pulling the 3-card Monty? Saying, we don't want a quarterback at 9 and so on and so forth, to throw everybody off and then pick him.
Well, and you know what? I mean, first of all, every club has their own evaluations of players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been talking Sanders for a long time here.
Yeah.
It could be the guy from Mississippi too.
Yeah.
They seem to like him quite a bit. Okay. The problem is that you got a leaky offensive line that still needs help.
Yes.
You do need a quarterback, but
Yes.
I think the better scenario would be go for best athlete at number 9 and then try to come back into the first round or early second round. And, maybe it's the quarterback from Alabama. Maybe it's the guy from Louisville.
They have 2 second rounders, so they should be able to make some moves.
The other scenario I kind of see is that they either choose Genty or the tight end from Penn State.
Yes. Love that.
And make some swaps around, jump back into the first round, and get Dart at the end of the.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
could
I think
definitely
I think a lot of people are speculating, but they're gonna have to be wary of what the Giants do and what the Browns do, because they're kind of in the same position as the Saints. They're probably not going to draft a quarterback at number 2 and 3. So they're going to be looking to come back and see if they can also snipe and get one of those quarterbacks. So now, I presented this multiple times, but neither of you like my idea.
No.
You could draft best athlete at number 9 and you could take a guy, you don't have to do anything. Number 12 from the Green Bay
Never
Packers
happened.
and New York Jets could come into New Orleans,
No.
create a lot of excitement for a year.
And a lot of trouble.
No.
And
We already
We
got
don't
a
want
trouble
those
quarterback.
headaches. No.
Man, you guys are not willing to have some
We already
fun
got
here.
a trouble quarterback, and I think that tomorrow night we may not have that trouble quarterback anymore. I think that's going to be part of a deal. I really believe that. That's why Loomis said he wouldn't talk about him anymore today.
Well, I tell you what, it'll be fun tomorrow night. Thursday
Yes,
night.
always
Thursday
fun.
night from God's country, Green
Uh-oh.
Bay, Wisconsin.
And
it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to be sitting in front of my TV at 7 o'clock.
Let everybody
Carey,
know.
I'll maybe join you tomorrow night. We'll see.
Well, just to let you guys know, we are going to be doing the draft here live on WBOK. So
All right.
from 7 and we won't see you guys
Awesome.
tomorrow night. So we'll
Oh,
be
no show
carrying
tomorrow night?
We'll be doing the draft show.
So no show tomorrow
No
night?
show. No
All
show
right.
tomorrow night.
Well, good. All right.
Well, we can really.
Man, now I'm going to sit in my living room at
Can I-
6 o'clock.
Can I call in and say stuff?
Hey, everybody, this has been a great show. Get
Great
out and
show.
vote.
Yes.
Carrie and I will not be with you tomorrow night. We will see you next Tuesday. Enjoy Jazz Fest, everyone.
Have a good evening and a good weekend. Good night.
WBOK online at WBOK1230.com.